morning.
Hello.
Welcome along to Webinar Wednesday. It's silky smooth as always. It's Wednesday the 6th of July. I'm Pauline. Hello, welcome along, and joined by Keith.
Hello, everyone. Yep, it's the first time I've done Webinar Wednesday for quite a while, Pauline.
It is not that you're rusty. It's still keeping it cool. Thank you very much for coming on today. Today we're going to be chatting to Yvonne Nova from the Scottish Government about the changes that are taking place to the Statutory Guidance on self-directed support, which is a really interesting piece of work that we're involved in and we're really happy to be chatting about. And we'll bring Yvonne in a few minutes after we do our usual catchy-uppy. So how's things, Keith? What have you been up to?
Yeah, it's good. I wish it was a bit warmer for summer, that's all. I am keeping cool, but that's because we haven't had any sun properly yet, but there we are. Yeah, good. Yeah, things are good. Yeah, I'm enjoying things. We kept busy, haven't we, Pauline? Got lots of things on the go, lots of things to tell people about. So
we do. One of the biggest things we've got going on at the moment, which is for good morning, Liam, good to see you. And Alistair, hello. We are just about to start recruiting for our Working Together for Change programme, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we are, yeah.
That ran fully for the first time last year. It started a couple of years ago, but something got in the way, and we're delighted to be opening that up again. Do you want to say a wee bit about what that is for any new?
Yeah. So Working Together for Change is where everybody does that, really. People with a whole range of different interests in making self-directed support work well get together and learn and share together over 6 months. So people working in local authorities as social workers or managers, people working in organizations providing support, family members and individuals who are thinking about support or accessing support themselves all get together. So about 30 people we are intending to recruit onto that over those 6 months, from September this year through to finishing towards the end of March next year. And we're literally just about to get that stuff out, haven't we, Polly? Just had a few last minute detail tweaking around venues and exact dates. So next week we'll get that out to everybody, and we'll be really looking forward to getting people's applications in, because we do want that great mix. We want that variety of people, variety of interests, because it is really powerful when people do that, learn, share, and work together to make positive change. So we're really keen to get that range of interests. And first date is the 27th of September, isn't it, Paul? So we know that now, and it's going to be in Stirling Management Centre. So we know a few things. We're just about to get out next week, and then please, if you're interested, apply. If you know somebody else you think might be interested, share the information. If you're able to share it around your own networks or with your own friends, do that as well. We're just keen to get it out there to as many people as possible. And we will look forward to doing the whole thing again from September with that new cohort, with that new group, and with the new energy that I'll bring.
And if people want to apply for that or find out more information, just send us a wee email. It's info at, I think you've got email just to spring up on the screen. It's info at. Excellent.
There we are. If anyone wants to contact us about that or anything at all from today, just get in touch with us there, and it'll go straight to June.
It will.
And then when June comes back from a holiday, she'll tell us if we need to talk to people. So that's great.
And then the other thing that I've been working away a lot on is that we're soon to be publishing. There's Alistair saying first one had great results, good connections, and fab actions. Yeah, it was a really inspiring group. And hi, Violet and Kevin. And Michael Chizo, you're all here today. Hi, good morning. So something I've been working away quite a lot on over the last couple of months is about research we've been doing on local authority experiences of option 2, my favourite option, and I talk about it a lot. So we're going to be publishing some research where we just had a conversation with 6 health and social care partnerships about their experiences of delivering option 2 of self-directed support, and it's been incredibly interesting. So we'll be publishing that in the next couple of weeks, so I don't overcommit myself. It might be next week, but definitely a couple of weeks' time, which is very exciting. So we'll be sharing that here, and then we'll dedicate a bit of time on our webinars and lunchtime sessions to chat through the findings in more detail and hopefully help people think about solutions to the challenges that they're facing and implement an option too.
Okay, so that's definitely going to be out before the end of July then, isn't it, Pauline?
Oh, yeah. Aye, definitely.
Yeah. Excellent.
Definitely.
Good. Look forward to it.
Aye. And then a couple of other opportunities that today we're talking about getting people's opinions heard on a piece of Scottish Government work, but there's a couple more opportunities like this as well that are out for people to get involved with. One of which is the new mental health and wellbeing strategy that the Scottish Government are consulting on at the moment. So this is a 5-year strategy with which will guide the work that the Scottish Government does to improve mental health and wellbeing for everybody across Scotland. And it's got a vision, a set of outcomes, ideas about how to measure it. So have a wee look at the link that Keith's just helpfully brought up on screen. And there's also engagement events around about that as well. So if you're interested in mental health and wellbeing, follow the link, get involved. And then
I'm doing well, Pauline, aren't I? Because usually June would do this.
Silky smooth. This is great. And the other one as well, obviously we've been talking a lot over the last few months and year or so about the new National Care Service and the proposals for that. And the bill got published just a couple of weeks ago. There are 4, I think, events for people to come along and hear from Scottish Government about what the plans really mean and maybe ask some questions and get involved in that very, very important piece of legislation, which is being proposed to be one of the most transformational changes to social care for a very, very long time. So definitely get involved in those events if you're free. Click on the link and sign up to one of them. They're all held online, I think. So.
And just to say, I'm just going to say, Pauline, just if anybody's, obviously we're putting the links up just now as people are here, but if anybody's seeing this and either misses the link, just get in touch with us, or you can watch this back because it's coming through both the In Control Scotland Facebook and YouTube page, so you can watch it back and get it there if you want, or just get in touch with us and we'll send you out the links for any of these things directly.
Then what else? The lunchtime sessions as well, because we've been rolling away with our children and families lunchtime sessions on the last Thursday of the month. But summer holidays have happened. You wouldn't believe it, so look outside. But so there's not going to be one of those in July, is there, Keith?
No, Nick, we'll come back with those in August, end of August, 25th of August, because obviously it is the last Thursday of the month, so we know the date already. But we're currently doing a bit of a consultation around future sessions as well, aren't we, Pauline? So if anybody hasn't seen our news brief that went out last Friday, that June did on just before she went off on holiday, there's a link in the news brief for people's comments, views and thoughts about future lunchtime sessions for people interested in self-directed support for children and families. So yeah, we're keen to get as many views on that as well. So if you haven't got the news brief, get in touch with us. If you have got the news brief and you've thought, I might not answer that bit, please do, because we're just keen to get thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, and if you have been to one of the sessions or you haven't, we're interested to find out from people who haven't been as well, to find out if you're involved in that work, why haven't you got involved in this, or anything that you would like to see that would help you want to get involved. So very important. But the other lunchtime sessions, we do 2 sets. We do our second Tuesday of the month as well, and we don't take a break in the other set of lunchtime sessions. So next Tuesday, the 12th of July, is that right? We'll be spending time in our Tuesday lunchtime session from 12 o'clock to go into a wee bit more detail about what we're talking about today, which is the development of the redraft of the Statutory Guidance on self-directed support. So we'll hopefully be able to gather maybe some of your views today, but this might be news to lots of people, so you might want a bit more time and space to think about it. And please do come along to our Tuesday session to dive into that in a wee bit more detail and help us respond to the Scottish Government and to get your thoughts heard.
Okay. We've just got a few more comments in, then we bring Nova on. So I think Liam's asking if we can share the information on working together for change with Equal Future and Gig Buddies, which we can do that. Karen can't wait to see it. And no, just there's that. Can you put the link? Can you put the link in the chat? Yeah, so I think we've done that for all of those. That's fine. Excellent. Thanks everyone for your comments. Okay, so shall we invite Pauline? We'll not invite Pauline because you're already here, Pauline. We'll invite Nova in and
Yvonne.
We'll invite Yvonne in and get Pauline to welcome Yvonne into our monthly webinar Wednesday. See, I can tell I haven't done it for a while, Pauline.
Good morning, Yvonne.
Good morning. What a lovely way to start the morning.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you've got a great background behind you as well.
Yeah, so this is the corporate Scottish Government Edinburgh backdrop. So yeah, otherwise you would get my messy room behind me. So thank you very much for inviting me along this morning.
No, thanks so much for joining us, Yvonne. Do you want to even give just a quick introduction to yourself, who you are, what you do, why you're here?
Yeah, so I can promise you that I will certainly not be as slick as Keith and Pauline are at these webinars. It's still all a bit new to us. So my name is Yvonne Nova. I work for the Scottish Government in the newly formed Self-Directed Support Improvement Team. Our little team was formed towards the beginning of April of this year, with James coming on post first, and then myself and Julie joined about 3 weeks after that at the end of April. So we are still very much learning, SDS and everything that goes with it, as well as trying to produce the new revised guidance at the same time. Going forward, you would probably see either myself or James at these types of things, and you will be more involved with Julie from the point of grant management. So Julie does all the grant management, so she'll be talking to you about your projects and how they're progressing as they go through. So our first remit as our little small team was to look at the SDS statutory guidance. We all know about the Feely report and the findings that came from that, and one of them was a strong recommendation that we looked at the guidance and took on board what had worked really, really well within the COVID pandemic. It was one of those things that was thrust upon all of us, irrespective of what job you were in, where about in the country you were. We all had to deal with it in some way, and some things worked really, really well, some things didn't work so well, and obviously no one is any stranger to what all was going on with regard to care homes, etc. So we've taken on board what worked well from the rewrite of the guidance following the response to COVID, and we've incorporated the good bits of that into the statutory guidance, and generally had a review of the whole document and to make it more streamlined. So our approach was, in the beginning, we all read it, and it was quite useful in the sense that we had no background to SDS, because we could read it without any preconceived knowledge. So therefore, in that breath, we could then look at it and go, actually, that doesn't make sense. If it doesn't make sense to us, then it's not going to make sense to the audience. So that was our starting point of, right, how does this make sense? And a few of the things that we automatically said was, there's far too much repetition. There was things in this section that were repeated in that section, that were repeated in another section. Sometimes the language is slightly different in the repetition, so then it was conflicting. So the same piece of information ended up conflicting itself just because of the language used. So we looked at things like that. We also looked at things that what didn't add benefit to the document as it stood. So things like having a case study every sort of like second or third paragraph, we felt interrupted the flow of the information going through. You seem to be just like knocking yourself back and forward all the time. So they were what we called the superficial changes. So we weren't taking anything out per se, we weren't changing anything per se. It was what we could take out that wouldn't affect the document in any way. So repetitions and the case studies that where they were within the body of the document, we didn't think it added to it. So from there, we then looked at, right, okay, how can we make this more coherent, and how would it flow better? So we went through it and looked at different sections. How could we pull information together in a logical manner and set it into clear, distinct sections? We're not there. I mean, Pauline, you'll have had the version that we've just issued. We're not there yet. We know we're not there yet, but we've had a first stab at having some sections. So sections such as obviously SDS and what the options are. I mean, that's a no-brainer, that one. But things like the Act and how it intertwines with other legislation that's out there, and also updating legislation from the previous Act. So the previous Act came into force in 2014, and this is the first real review that it's had since its inception. So a lot of legislation has either been rewritten, updated, taken away, replaced. So we've made that more clearer on how all the legislation links. We've also put in a section all to do with the Act and how it affects the local authorities, as another section on roles and responsibilities. So, you know, who does what and why and where and how. Complaints and redress. There's a section on finance and procurement. What else is it off the top of my head? I can't remember, so I will look at my little list. Eligibility. How could I forget eligibility criteria? I'm sure that's a Freudian definite slip. I don't want to go there. Yes, eligibility criteria and employment, looking at sort of PAs and things like that. So we've tried to restructure it to make it a little bit more logical, a bit more free-flowing. Our original intention when we first set out this was to try and reduce it to about 50, 60 pages, okay, from this massive 140-page document, to try and put it down. A lot of the feedback we got initially was that it was pretty much 50-50, 50-50 of we want it shorter, don't take anything out of it. So we're kind of somewhere in the middle now, where we've taken some of it out, but we're not down to what we wanted, and we're somewhere in the middle at the moment. Which direction it goes in, we'll see as we go on from here. So
I think sorry, Yvonne, I think you've already mentioned some of the things that you could take out as well, haven't you? There, like the bits of duplication, and maybe the case studies that allow it to be a bit more succinct anyway. Meet both those.
Yeah, I mean, there is a fear. I mean, obviously we've done this presentation a few times to different audiences, and there is a very big concern, and I expect some questions to relate around this here as well, is that in our endeavours to make the document smaller, there's very real concerns and worries that we take out information that we shouldn't take out, that certain sectors find important, you know, and there is a concern that we're just taking it out for the sake of taking it out, and that is certainly not the case. You know, we're not going to take anything out that is necessary to be in there. All we're trying to do is take out all the replication and all the bits that aren't really necessary in that document. The document's a guidance document. It's not a practice document. It's not a document, you know, that can be written to suit every single user. It has to be a document that overarches every user. So where we've had requests where, oh, you need to put in a section that says everything that can be bought by finance, you know, in option 1, that's not the role of that guidance document. That's more a practice document. So it's a bit about culture and education of actually what this document's remit is and what its purpose is, and its purpose is to give a guidance, and your practice documents then sit underneath that, you know. So
I think that's a really helpful thing to point out in the first instance, that there's the legislation, which is the law, and then there's this document, which is the guidance to support how you do the law, isn't it? But it's not a set of rules. It's not a to-do list. It's a guide, like you say.
Because as a Scottish Government, we can't tell you what you can and cannot do. We can't be that prescriptive. That's what the Act is for. So the guidance underneath that is us giving you basic guidance, pointing you in the direction of where you can go. But your actual how do you deliver that is your practice documents that sit underneath that, and that will come at a later stage. So I think in some cases, a lot of the feedback we get is that people are maybe 2 or 3 steps ahead at implementation. We're not there yet. You know, we're still just at this guidance part, and then the practice documentations will be in phase 2, which will be the in what we are calling the implementation stage, and how we then support everyone to implement the actual delivery of the Act through the guidance, if that makes any sense at all.
It does. Can I put a couple of points or questions that people have made so far, Yvonne, up just to see any reflections on that? Or do you want to keep
or
going
I can just finish. I've got just another couple more sentences, and then I'll open it up to questions, because I find that's easier. People, as I talk, have thousands of questions. So just to follow on for that, so what we've done is we've just issued the first draft of the revised documentation. So that went out to the Short Life Working Group members, of which Pauline is a member, on Monday, for consideration for the group. We have authorised that it can go slightly further afield if we get told who it's going to, because it's not a final document, so it's not for public consideration. So we have to make sure it doesn't go too far out and ends up on the front page of the Sun inadvertently. So we will all be coming back together on the 27th of July in a workshop, where all the Short Life Working Group members will be broken down into subgroups based on their preference of what subgroups they want to be on, which roughly matches what the sections are. And then we'll talk through each of these individually, and then we'll go away and we'll redraft the guidance. So this is just the first draft of it, and we expect many more iterations before we get to the final version in September. So whatever you're seeing now is not the final. This is just let's start with this and see where we go with this. And some of the feedback that we've had already, you know, is pointing at, yes, we've still got repetitions, we've still got a bit of this and that to work on. So that's what we're doing from there. And I think that's really all I have to update you with. So yeah, just fire the questions at me and I'll do my best.
Okay. Can we just for you to say a little bit more about one of the things that you said there, and that was just the timescale aspect of it. Just when is it anticipated that the new guidance will be actually finished and in place and have gone through its whatever processes it needs to go through to be out there?
So Minister Stewart is given us a deadline of the end of September to have a final version published. We are not doing a public consultation, so some of you may have heard in previous conversations about a public consultation. When we put it through the system for public consultation, it was rejected because it's not a change to anything. So the Act's not being changed, the legislation's not being changed, therefore it doesn't qualify for public consultation. So this is what the Short Life Working Group is, and you know, having the workshops this is how we're gathering views on what we're doing, and through member organisations, through the Short Life Working Groups. We've got Social Work Scotland, we've got SDSS, we've got In Control, we've got the Alliance, we've got COSLA, we've got MENCOP, SIPCOC, and we've got lots of local authority memberships as well. So between them and their members, you know, we're getting lots of feedback from people with lived experience, people who deliver. So we are trying our best to get a varied range of inputs into what we're doing as we possibly can.
And maybe that just, I mean, you maybe answered this question then, but that was just one of the questions that was there that you would have probably expected would be asked, as well as, did you speak to service users and get their opinions of how the system works on the ground? So that was a question from
not directly. So we haven't directly, but there's a lot of feedback that we've got through Social Work Scotland, through Inspiring Scotland, through CERD organisations, you know, for feedback from people with lived experience. And also the Feely report had a lot of feedback from the general public, because they did do a full consultation. So we've taken on board comments made through the Feely report and also through member organisations.
So we'll also be sort of saying our conversation that we'll be having at our lunchtime session on Tuesday would encourage anybody and everybody who's got an interest in this to come along and get your voice heard. And if you can't make it along to the Tuesday session, but you do want to have a chat about it or want to have your voice heard in some way, shape or form, just get in touch with us, because Yvonne's right, the timeline of this and the nature of it makes it quite tricky to do a big full public consultation, but people like us are here to be able to try and gather as many views as we can and make sure everybody's got a platform for their voices to get heard. So please do get in touch or attend one of the events if you want to get involved in that.
And alternately, if you want, you can email me directly as well, and we'll feed the comments in through the system as well.
Brilliant.
Okay. Are you happy for me just to share your email on here, Yvonne?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I can do that in a minute then. I should be able to do that in a minute. But just another question from Karen was, again, it's something that you've touched on a little bit, but is there any greater pressure on local authorities to follow the guidance rather than implement their individual perception of the guidance? The very much work is gatekeeping, so gatekeeping the quality, I suppose, or the consistency of the experience of people across Scotland.
Yeah, this is one thing that Mr. Stewart is very much aware of, and what we're very keen to address is that the SDS, and I should say this because this is probably a question that will come up. We have had various concerns raised that in the implementation of the National Care Service, SDS going to get thrown out the window. That is absolutely not the case. SDS is being built into the NCS. The only thing that is different is that there is a recognition by Mr. Stewart and First Minister that we can't wait for change, until the NCS is in place. So we have to do something in this interim period between now and the NCS becoming a fully embedded, in progress and working model. So the changes that we're doing now are not something that are going to get thrown out the window. They are something that is going to continue. And one of the forefronts of Mr. Stewart's vision is that, again, anyone in Scotland, anywhere in Scotland, should receive the same service irrespective of where they are and what local authority is in. And this is going to be one of the big drivers for the implementation stage, is ensuring that all options are offered by all local authorities, unless there is very particular reasons why that can't happen. And we do know that there is, for example, up in rural areas, sometimes it's just not practical, or because of geography, to offer all four. But it shouldn't mean that they're only offered one, though. You can, it should never be a case of you may not be able to get all four, but you should still be able to be given a choice. So it's looking at how we can, implement that across the board. But certainly for most local authority areas, apart from the ones that have very definitive geographical or socio-economical reasons, should all be the same irrespective throughout Scotland. And it is something we're working very hard at writing into the guidance, and also how we can implement that going forward.
And I think that's about that informed choices, isn't it? It's about that idea that you have, at least you have the information about all the options, and you know the context of your own circumstances and the things around you. So I think we've got a comment from Alistair there, which was, so Alistair said it'd be great if we can get more confident. I think, I mean, as the Feely report, and as we all, I think, know very well, I think that's been one of the biggest frustrations, hasn't it, about how self-directed support has played out over the last 8 years since the legislation came into place.
And I think some of the things we've heard as well, comments, is that in some respects the self-directed support Act came out, the guidance came out, but then other legislation came out that kind of superseded it. So you had your carers legislation, and that kind of trumps SDS, and then you've got other legislation that trumps, and SDS for whatever reason, whether best intentioned or not, has seemed to slipped further down, the pecking order, and it's about how we pull that back up and say, yes, there is all this other legislation, and it is all important, but that shouldn't trump that, and it's that's why we've got in the section about how all the acts interlinked and how they work together, etc.
That's really helpful, Yvonne. We certainly see that sometimes people still think, and it is called out specifically in the new guidance, but there is still a misconception that SDS is something different to
Mhm.
social care, and actually it's fundamentally as the vehicle in which social
Yes.
care is delivered, all social care with a limited number of exceptions, but
Yes.
almost all social care.
Mm-hmm.
While Keith's squirreling away on the captions, can I ask another wee question? You mentioned something a way back early in the start of your chat when you said about using some of the learning from the coronavirus pandemic.
Yes.
Can you tell us a wee bit about that? What you think we learned, and what was good, what we can keep, and what we can learn from?
Yeah, so it's already been incorporated into the draft one that's been circulated. So things that worked well was I know this is going on YouTube, so I have to watch my words, in the sense that the pandemic did a lot of good as far as local authorities were concerned, in the sense that it forced them to be more flexible. You know, that was the only answer to the problem at that time, was that they had to be more flexible in their approach. And that's one of the good things that has come about, is this flexibility, this, you know, which is always what SDS, I mean, that is the core of SDS, is the flexibility of choice, to allow the supported person to have the support that they need to allow them to live their life. And it wasn't always delivered in that way, where the pandemic response has kind of forced that part in a lot of local authority areas that were maybe a bit reticent to allow that flexibility initially. Other things that worked well was about employing family members as personal assistants and cutting a lot of the red tape out of that process. I guess that there's something I should say, because I'm surprised that it's maybe in the questions. And I think my son's just tried to pop in 1 second. What? All right, bye-bye. Sorry. He picks his moments. What was I saying? Yeah, so things that, one thing that really got brought up when we were looking at the guidance quite recently, and it was to do with, you know, family members and powers of attorneys and guardianships, and there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding about whether a person that holds a power of attorney can also be a paid personal assistant, and, you know, at what point, whether it's active or inactive, does that shift of responsibility changes. So we've currently got Scottish Legal Department are now looking into that, because there was a test case just went through the High Court recently on that very matter, and it said that, you know, it shouldn't be a barrier, you know. So that's one good thing that's come out of the pandemic, was this personal assistance being family members and things. But I would say the number one is the flexibility, you know, with the local authorities to implement it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting that I know at the start that you said that both yourself and your other colleagues in the improvement team, which itself is a really good title because it lays out there what we're trying to do. I think it's interesting coming with those fresh eyes, actually, isn't it? So, because I think part of sometimes there is that sort of almost mythology around self-directed support, and maybe sometimes it's not explained as well as it could be, because it's a really, I mean, in the essence, it's a really simple set of ideas and approaches, isn't it? But
yeah,
but we need to make sure that the language that's used is really clear for everyone, that everybody can understand all those the ideas around the different options and so on.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, one of the things is, you know, my only exposure to SDS was in setting up care packages for my mum. And I'll be perfectly honest, they weren't particularly good experiences. But yeah, SDS in its essence is a very simple, you know, set of choices. You have, you know, 4 options, and, you know, you should be able to make your choices through that, you know, to support your needs. But yeah, you know, reading the document, it, you know, with the best of intentions, you can see why it was done the way it was done.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was a new system, but it's now been in place, and it's about, you know, if you're talking pure improvement, it's all improvement is about putting something in place, revisiting it, what worked, what didn't work, and then taking the best of what worked, you know, and taking that forward, and what didn't work, either remedying it or replacing it. And this is basically what we're doing with this, is we're looking at the guidance and going, okay, that worked at a point in time, but time has moved, things have moved, and therefore we have to, you know, do the same process with it.
Mm-hmm. There's a comment here from Alistair. It says, some of the work we do shows that the fear of getting it wrong can crush the creative and imaginative ideas. Flexibility has given great results. So I think there's that. I think Alistair's emphasising there that sometimes people are within authorities specifically. I think he's saying they're wary about worrying about not getting it right, and that sometimes that reduces people's flexibility, which is what we're all trying to get to, isn't it? So,
so without actually knowing what they were, is that like an assessment or eligibility? I mean, at what point is the fear of getting it wrong?
I'm assuming it's at the point of planning. I think Alistair's talking about when people are beginning to think about what it is that they can and can't do and are able to do, and it's getting the balance of risk right. I know one of Alistair's
risk.
It's that idea about saying there's a risk in not doing things as well as there's a risk in doing things, and that the important aspect of that is the informed choices and getting the balance right.
I think we've had similar comments, and it was worded slightly differently about the enabling and the disabling context, in that you this is more from social workers, like when they're dealing with a supported person, it's very much in the enabled tense, of you can have this to enable you to do XYZ, but then they have to change that language when they go to the local authority to try and get the funding, and when it's then changed to disabling, unless this person gets, they cannot. And we've had quite a plea to try and change that discourse, where it's not a disabling, enabling switch that that everyone is singing off the same hymn sheet, which I think is probably ties into that same type of thing. Is there shouldn't be a right and a wrong, and there shouldn't be that fear of getting it right or wrong. You should be able to do what you think is right for the supported person. How we address that, I think that's going to come in time as we we go through the documents and we start taking on board all the comments and things. But yes, it's certainly, we are very much aware of that. And again, it is a local authority by local authority issue, so it's not across the board. And again, it's about making that consistency of approach.
It comes back to, in the Feely report, social care being described as a springboard, not a safety net. And I think when we think in definitely the terms of the new guidance and the National Care Service, I think presents social care in a much more positive way, of it being something that is there to help people live a good life, not just to keep people safe. It's about much more than just keeping people alive. It's keeping people having good lives. So
and I think as well, there's and the guidance, the guidance can't do this part of it, because the guidance in itself is not going to solve everything, because that is the whole implementation side of it. But for me, there is this kind of perception that social care is just for the elderly. That when you talk of social care, it's like you think of an elderly person that needs care at their latter years of life, and you forget that there's so much underneath that isn't elderly, that somehow doesn't really cross people's, they just, if you think about, I mean, I had a nephew who had severe cerebral palsy. Now, Gregor had cerebral palsy. Gregor was disabled, but many people wouldn't think of that from a social care aspect, but he was in child, but then he was lucky enough to live into a young adult life, so he did go into adult social care, but not many people make that association. And I think that's what a culture thing has to change as well, that it's not just elderly people. Social care hits, I think with the last statistics we looked at, and I'm not sure if they're correct because we're still trying to look at them, but it's like 42% of the population can feed into adult social care, whether it's elderly, children, mental health, homelessness. There's so many. So you're talking almost half the population, is already using social care in some form of another. Yet, like you say, it's not given that recognition that it deserves.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we often like to say is that it's about us. So this is about all of us, and it touches all our lives in some way or another, within our families and within our extended relationships, and ourselves often as well. So just a couple of comments, because I know we're at 11:40 already. There's one here which is maybe reflecting a little bit on something you were saying there, and it says a key issue is that the legislation needed and all systems changed to support it properly, and the system didn't change. So that's really about systems and culture as well, just as what you've been referring to, because I think most people would say the legislation that we've got is great, but what didn't happen was that the culture and the systems didn't change to support that. And I think that's what Leslie's identifying.
That's absolutely correct. You know, it's the same. It's like I relate it to text messages, you know, the guidance. So, you know, you can get a text message, and depending on what mood you're in, you can either get a text message that comes through and you go, oh yeah, they're they may be my friend, and you can get the same set of words, and you're maybe in a grumpy head, or you read it quickly and you go, oh, what are they being a bit, you know, tardy at? And the guidance is a bit the same. Is like each individual local authority has looked at the same set of words and interpreted it differently, and that's the bit that we're trying to take away almost, is that ability to misinterpret. And I don't think we're ever going to be able to do that, because everyone will read something the way they want to. I mean, the newspapers are brilliant for taking a fact and spinning it 3,000 different ways. And that's what, you know, is happening, but it's trying to minimize the ability for them to do that, and trying to be more prescriptive in the wording to try and reduce that, so that we do get that consistency of implementation and consistency of how that legislation is being read and adapted. And again, I think this will come into practice guidance as well, is if we can get centralised practice guidance, which is not something the Scottish Government can do, but we can certainly assist. And I think that's where your consistency is going to come out, because if you get a set of practice documents that are quite prescriptive, then that reduces again, you know, the limits of what can be misinterpreted or interpreted in a certain way.
We've got something here which is just one of the current stressors really that's around for people, which is Karen just saying that working parents and kids with additional support needs can't source PAs, even though they're offering £14 an hour. And I mean, that's obviously an issue which is to do with getting enough people, getting enough of the right people, not only as PAs, obviously, because it's a challenge. I know it's a challenge within local authorities. It's a challenge within service provider organisations. Any thoughts on that? I mean,
I know this is at the forefront of Mr. Stewart's mind. There is a whole separate team. So we've got the workforce. Well, we've got two teams actually. We've got the workforce team, and we've got the PA team within Scottish Government. And they're specifically looking at workforce issues, which is your basically your non-PA. So this is your sort of your employed carers, whether they be employed carers through the local authorities, through private care homes, etc. So they're looking at that, and looking at terms and conditions, and how we can get more people into the profession, support them whilst they're in there, and keep them in the profession, because there is a lot of churn within social care staff. And then we have another team headed up by Toria, who's looking specifically at PAs, and she's looking at PAs, not only PAs that are employed, so you can get personal assistants that are employed through local authorities and through care homes, but also family members, so more your self-employed PAs and voluntary PAs. So there is a big piece of work going on behind the scenes, you know, particularly looking just at workforce and PAs, and part of the PA work as well ties in with the SDS work that we're doing with regard to these powers of attorneys and things, you know, where sometimes that can be the thing that prohibits a PA being a family member, is this level of power of attorney and guardianship, because at the moment you can't be both. And if, you know, you're a single parent of an elderly person that requires care, and you want to be a personal assistant but also need power of attorney, then it puts you in a particularly difficult situation. So yeah, there is a lot of work going on about that, so we are aware of it. I don't know if there'll be a quick fix on it, but we are certainly very much aware of it, and we are addressing it. Not my team, but other teams within the Scottish Government.
I mean, that's something we come across obviously everywhere, isn't it, Pauline? Just that difficulty in having enough people, and that's caused by all sorts of things that maybe it's beyond the scope of today's.
Absolutely. And it's so complicated as well when you think about geography, you think about people, especially children and families who've maybe got really small budgets of support. So it's trying to think quite creatively sometimes. And we have a lot of conversations on a really regular basis with people to try and help pick away at some of those problems. But you're right, it's not a today fix.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the things, I mean, we had a question in a couple of weeks ago, and from a woman, and you know, she'd done everything correctly in the sense that she'd got her option one, she'd got her budget, and all she wanted to do was 2 or 3 days a week during the school holidays was employ a PA to do activities with the children, because she had to work those days. She worked part-time, and it was just, you know, to either take the children to the zoo or, you know, whatever it was disabled children, but she couldn't get a PA to actually do that. So she had everything in place, and it was just this last little bit that was the stumbling block. So yeah, we're very much aware. You know, I mean, I don't know whether yourselves or the members know, but the Scottish Government, we get what are called ministerial questions, where people write into the minister, you know, with particular complaints or concerns that, you know, they want addressed, which come to us to see, you know, to give Mr. Stewart an update on why this particular situation. So although, you know, we're not doing this public consultation, we are continually having information fed into us from lots of different sources. And, you know, say when you're writing into minister, it's not normally to say, you know, you're brilliant, you're wonderful, because, you know, we're all very quick at writing complaint letters, but not so much when we write letters of praise. So, you know, when someone's writing to minister, it is normally because they're not happy about something. So, you know, we do hear what's going on, maybe not directly face to face, but we do hear.
I've just got one more comment that I'll share, and then we'll maybe think about if any of us got any final comments, just because we are at 11:47 and we try and keep it to roughly 45 to 50 minutes. So this is just a comment from someone who says, pot noodle, best instructions today, just add water, it's not rocket science. So I think what that's saying is, to some extent, the statutory guidance, part of what it should be saying is about allowing people to have that it's not rocket science, it's about allowing people to have that creativity and flexibility to work out what's going to be the best support for them in their own lives. And that part of it is about almost getting out of the way to allow people, but keeping it as simple as possible so that people who are the experts in their own lives can have that with obviously with some of the provisos that we put in place and circumstances and all sorts, but that's part of what any guidance should be about, focusing on those really simple things so that people get flexibility.
Yeah,
just add choice and control. It's not rocket science.
Yeah.
That'll be our new strapline.
Yeah, that's a good one. That, but I like that one. It's very good.
Any final comments from yourself, Yvonne? Anything you really want to say that you haven't?
No. It's been a delight to come. You've been either Keith is a very, very good moderator, or you're just a very nice audience. But you've been a very kind.
It's nice.
A very kind audience.
We are. We only allow people who are going to be kind to each other on here, don't we, Pauline?
Yeah, positive and possible. No, thank you so much, Yvonne, for your time today. And just as a final reminder, we will be chatting about this in a wee bit more detail at our lunchtime session next Tuesday at 12 o'clock. If anybody wants to join us, then please send a wee note and get involved. But otherwise,
I think I'll just show your email there, Yvonne.
Yep. That's fine.
So if anybody wants to contact Yvonne directly, they can contact there. If they miss that email or they want to contact through us, we're happy to take any other comments and pass them on as well. So,
just as a kind of final comment is thank you very much for having me. If you want us to come along again in the future, we're more than happy to come along and talk to you. And Pauline, if you have any questions after your Tuesday session, so if anything comes up that you want, just drop me a line, and I can do like a quick call to you, or we can do it via email. If you just want anything like clarified or anything to go back to your members with, that's absolutely fine.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Right. Thanks, everybody. And nice wee final message from Leslie. Thank you. Let's hope for positive change.
Absolutely.
Right. So we'll oh, sorry, you can say something else.
I was just going to say we'll be back next month.
What was I? Snap. Yeah, thanks everybody. Have an amazing summer if you manage to catch some sunshine, and we'll see you hopefully again at our next webinar Wednesday in August. So see you then.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.